Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I know that the weather is very unseasonable right here in Durham, North Carolina, and all in that space. That's right. It's probably around 60 or 70 degrees out there, and it's been that way for the first few days of this particular year, 2023. Who knows what kind of sense of the weather that's going to give for the rest of 2023. And I know a lot of other things are happening in the world as well. Also, we're trying to figure out when we're going to get a Speaker of the House and all in that space because apparently McCarthy has fallen for a third day in his GOP House Speaker fight and all of that. So we're going to see what happens in that situation and whether we have any sort of radical way of it being solved or what goes on and whether that ever happens or not. And of course, the president of ours, as the current one that's in office, has managed to fumble during a speech. Yeah, that was in the news again. Are we actually surprised by these news items or as well? Because apparently he did not know what the Title 8 border laws were, and he also mislabeled the CBP and all in that space. So definitely that is something else going on in the news and definitely things in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regards. And if folks start paying attention more to his health and his state of being and all in that way. And in terms of court cases, there have been a couple of interesting court cases. I know that I think it was a couple of days ago, a MAGA hat or one of those MAGA hats was actually ruled as being perfectly fine and all in that space. I believe that was one of the Supreme Court cases I saw like back on Monday or Tuesday. And now the South Carolina abortion law has been deemed unconstitutional by that state's Supreme Court. So that's one of the things that happened. So the U.S. court has struck down the South Carolina abortion ban, and I'm curious to see if that means that we've got to go back in and maybe make a new ban or new regulations within that ban and all in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that as well. So that is one of the things that I'm hearing. I'm also hearing that the Great Resignation isn't over yet. So apparently, folks are out there trying to hire and they're trying to figure out where are all the workers. And I actually know some people that are actually out there even on this particular day doing some job hunting and all in that space. And the U.S. economy has added 223,000 jobs in December. So that is one of the things that is good for the US economy, but definitely there are some other things that are going on in the world. And speaking of violence, apparently there's some violence going on in Mexico. That's right. Violence hit a Mexico cartel stronghold as the Chapo son was nabbed. So that I know that that's one of those gang members down there around the whole area of Mexico. And apparently, that particular part of Mexico is now in some sort of uh, chaos and all in that way. And we'll see what happens in that space. And by the way, hopefully Sasha will come in because we're also seeing that Germany and the US have agreed to send armored vehicles to Ukraine. So they can now have some armored vehicles to go with their fight. I've actually even heard some speculation that they may be trying to end the war by March. And that would be interesting to see if that happens and if that is actually possible or not possible and in that way. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And apparently, we still got the California floods. California is getting wetter and drier as that particular part of the country keeps getting wetter in terms of constant rain. I just told you we're having a little warm weather. And I guess over there, they're having constant rain and in that space. And in another national news story, a Connecticut lawmaker, Quentin Williams, was killed in a wrong way crash. And so he was a Connecticut state legislator, and a lot of folks were seeing him as a rising star state lawmaker. And we'll see how they react there in the area of Connecticut and who comes to take his place. But our sympathies do go out to his family and all in that kind of way. Let's see if I see any other national news going on or international news, I should say. Oh, China apparently is underrepresenting the severity of the COVID outbreak, according to the WHO. So, are we actually surprised by this or not surprised? As we know that a lot of places, including possibly even the US, are definitely not exactly maybe giving the right numbers, but I've got my data man here, and maybe he'll have some thoughts about that as well, because China is now defending its COVID response after the WHO gave its concern. And experts say that around 1 million deaths are quite possible in China due to COVID. But I don't think that those are the numbers that we'll be hearing from China and all in that space. And speaking of that, and one other thing, then like I said, I'll bring up my esteemed fellow panelists and all in that way. But we definitely have news that the Eurozone inflation rates have slid to 9.2% as energy prices surge cools. So that is something that is going on, and we'll see how that impacts the world and the world economy and all in that space. And I will give you a little bit of news from India as well, or actually I want to make sure that I'm giving the right place, but Great Britain, but with possible Indian ties. But Rishi Sunak's anti-strike laws may be illegal. That is some of the other news that are coming up out of that part of the world, because employers could sue unions under the planned anti-strike laws. So we're going to see whether folks think that that's a great idea, and maybe that's what should be happening even here in this part of the world as well. So I'm going to bring on my like I said, esteemed panelists. So I've got definitely Shaquille from down under, down there in Australia. He might have some news from down in that neck of the wood and everything. And I've also got, of course, Chris Greco, the data man, who is with me and all in that way. So looking forward to seeing some of his thoughts. And he's always got some interesting graphs and figures to share with us and all along those lines. And last but not least, I've got Dan Worthington, and he's always got some amazing things to say from that area of Utah and all in that space. You know, I was having a conversation earlier today with a friend of mine, and they were noticing that there is still a significant amount, even here in the United States, of folks that are facing hardships and homelessness and things of that nature. So I was just wondering, because that's one of the topics I was going to bring up is, are there enough resources for people that are facing whatever those situations are, and can we do something better about it, or should we just accept that as a casualty, that there may be some people that are not necessarily able to have the right living environments, whether they be veterans, whether they be just common citizens or whatever. But I do know, because just around the corner from me, there are even villages. I've seen like tent villages, even here in Durham, North Carolina, and I've seen them under bridges and other things in that space. But I was just wondering, is this something that, there might even be some there in Utah. I don't know what the situation there is in Utah or in Maryland, where Chris used to be at, or even in Australia. So is it something that we should be concerned about or not concerned about? Ted, I didn't really have a monologue, but that's one of the thoughts that was crossing my mind and everything.
Sorry, I've actually missed the question because I was busy backstage. Is what something that we should be worried about?
The situation of homelessness here in the United States. And
No, we shouldn't. Who cares? Like, nobody's going to say that. There's the political left that always goes on and on, like they're the only ones that care. Like, somehow, the other side of this argument, the evil capitalists like me are like, homeless people? Awesome! We need more of them. Like, nobody's on the other side of this argument, Mark. Of course it's
Mark, before we go into the homelessness aspect, I'd like you to just put up my share screen here for a second. And I want to show you how the Chinese are testing their people. Now I want you to take I don't know if I can get it. Yeah, here it is. So look how they're testing them. Look where they're putting the swab. They're not putting the swab in the nose. They're putting the swab in the mouth.
No.
They're putting the swab in the mouth.
No, Chris. You don't know.
Yes, I've seen it. I've seen it on TV.
Hold up. Because the way that the PCRs are done, even here in Australia and New Zealand, right, is they put them into the back of your throat and then they put them
what? Well, okay. So Shaquille, let's talk about this for a second. So basically, the
back of your throat, then they put them up your nose. Because that would up your nose first. So they put it on the back of your throat first, then they put it up your nose, and then they test it.
Oh man, it's like eating boogers. So basically, so what happened?
The throat first.
Oh, the first. Okay, and throat first. Okay. So it's like eating phlegm. All right. So basically, what happens is that. So I mean, but we in the United States, do not do that. As a matter of fact, if you put it in your mouth, if you put it in the back of your throat, it's considered a non-valid test. Yet there have been people that have been putting it at the back of their throat. They take one test, they do their nose, they take another test, they put it back of their throat, they get a negative on the one with the nose, positive on the one with the back of the throat. So, this is where this whole underrepresentation thing is going on. When I saw that on TV and I saw that they were testing in the back of their throat, and that was it. I mean, now maybe in Australia they do it differently, but in China, I saw that once they were done with the back of the throat, they were done. So if that's a situation and there's less of an occurrence of COVID in the back of your throat than in your nasal areas, they're gonna of course have an underrepresentation of the number of positives, because you're not gonna have a positive.
Chris, I think there's different types of tests and there's different efficacies of things. It's like comparing, it's like comparing the breathalyzer to a blood test to determine whether somebody was a drunk driver or not. I mean, there's just different testing methodologies. I mean, if your claim here is that it doesn't happen in America, therefore it shouldn't happen anywhere else. I mean, lots of things don't happen in America. For example, the word is herb, not herb. So the fact that you guys forget there's a H in the bloody word doesn't mean that there isn't actually a H in it.
Well, I do have some good news for you, Shaquille. I do have some good news. So if you put up my share screen again, please, if you would. Okay. So I do have some good news for you. So over the past 7 days, they've done Google Trends. Now, I wanted to make sure that I had all the categories I could. So I compared Kevin McCarthy, Damar Hamlin, Russo-Ukrainian War, and Shaquille Latimer. Now, I have to tell you that I'm sorry, but Damar Hamlin is way up there. But I want to show you. Wait a minute now. On when was it? On January the 4th. Yes, on January the 4th. You actually had Shaquille Latimer. You had the same amount of searches as Kevin McCarthy. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm so proud of you. I can't believe. I mean, I guess show it to you. There it is. Where I saw it. My hand is there. It is.
There it is.
So you had Russo-Ukrainian War, the Russo-Ukrainian War, and Shaquille Latimer had the same amount of searches. I just want to let you know that I'm so proud of you. Yes, Dan and I are going to clap. We're going to have tennis claps for you, because I think that's so cool. Wow.
We talked about it on the show, whether or not there could be an alternative to Kevin McCarthy. Steve Rouse suggested Donald Trump. I was being a smartass and said he's not a member of the House of Reps. And you guys corrected me and said, look, we don't follow the Westminster system. We have some bizarre in America at the moment. And you don't have to be a member of the House of Reps. So I think what happened was, after I said, well, maybe I should be the speaker, the LinkedIn viewers predominantly went, that sounds like a really good idea, and started typing my name in. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm going to tell Sasha, more than the Russo-Ukrainian, just as much as the Russo-Ukrainian War on that day. I just, wow, Shaquille Latimer and the Ukrainian War had the same amount of searches. That
doesn't sound right, though, does it? I mean, surely.
No, of course not.
Speaking of the same amount of searches, I just came up with a brilliant idea. I think that Shaquille will like it. I think Chris will like it as well. It involves Dan Worthington. I have decided that, in 2024, because they're having a hard time with the House and with everything else, I think that Dan Worthington would be a great president if you will make me the vice president. So I'm thinking that Dan Worthington for president of the United States and clean up.
No, Mark, get in line. Get in line. We've already had this discussion. You're muted, Dan. We can't hear you. Is he frozen?
Frozen. Yep.
Yeah, Dan
frozen. But he's frozen in a good. He's not frozen like this.
Mark, get in line because we've already got this plan. We've got David M. Walker. He's going to run for president. I think we said Steve Brown could be the vice. I'm going to be the Secretary of State, because if Kissinger can do it and he wasn't born in America, then obviously I can have that role. So I'll be the Secretary of State. The Speaker could be somebody articulate, so not Nick, obviously.
Dan.
Maybe we could make Dan the Attorney General.
And Chris will be Secretary of Defense.
Why is it every time I tell Dan that we can't hear him, he freezes? Look at him.
I know. Hi, Dan. Hi. So,
Something going wrong in Utah. Dan, we can't hear you. There's no sound.
You might have to bounce.
I'll tell you what we have to do is we have to put in what he's saying. So Dan, just start talking and we'll finish it up for you.
Well, as long as Dan agrees, I would be fantastic as the Secretary of State. Just nod your head, Dan.
Yeah. So of course I agree with you, Shaquille.
No,
of course I agree with you.
You might have to bounce out and back in. So let's try that.
I always agree with you, Shaquille. Yeah.
Well, Dan's getting his stuff together and everything. I did see somebody that was getting a lot of play. I wish I could think of their name because apparently they're only getting play now because they have a limited job. Because once they actually get a speaker, their job will be replaced and all of that. But I did hear a lot of folks, and I want to hear your thoughts, Chris, about this. That the woman that is running, I think she's the clerk of the court or the clerk of the house for the whole house, is doing a fantastic job. And I had her name somewhere. I think it was like Christine something, but I'll go find it. But they're saying that she is having to, very much be involved in this whole political situation, that she is handling it with a great deal of decor because she is the one that actually is the person you were talking about, the Robert's Rule of Order. She's the one trying to keep some sense of order there in the Congress as they're trying to find this leadership. And they said that she's had this role a couple of times where she got thrust into the limelight. Also, when she had to serve the papers of impeachment twice, I think, to Donald Trump. But those are the only couple of times that she was actually really in the news. But they are saying on all sides, because apparently there was a joke that she should be the Speaker of the House because apparently she's doing a good job in that role and everything. I'm going to try to find her name, but I did read an article, I think it was on Newsbreaker, one of those services, that said that she was doing a great job in that role, and I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts, and I will try to find her name and everything.
Well, I looked up clerk.house.gov, and I actually found. I mean, you can find about the clerk itself. Right. So she is the Honorable Cheryl L. Johnson, clerk of the House of Representatives. So she has. If you put on my share screen, I have the actual floor summary from January 5th. That shows, exactly what happened at which time. I mean, we're talking 2 seconds difference here. 2 seconds. I mean, every 2. I mean, this person is doing a great job of. Mr. Scalise moved that the House do now adjourn at 7:51 p.m. You guys should be forced to sit there and go through this crap all night, every night until you get it right. I mean, this crap about, we got to have 11 votes and, roll call 13, election of the Speaker, 13.
Because you're Italian, you're obviously Roman Catholic. That's what I'm going to go with here. Scene at the end of the Da Vinci Code, right, where the Pope passes away and all the archbishops have to sit there. And they're basically locked in this chamber until they agree on who the new pope is going to be. Yeah, I actually think that locking all the politicians up in a room and leaving them there forever until they agree, I think that actually sounds quite good. I mean, not just American politicians, any politicians. Lock them all up in a room and don't let them leave.
Yep.
Until they can agree on something.
Sequester them like a freaking jury, and you get in there, and I'll tell you,
give them toilet breaks,
and water,
Chris, but we're going to sequester them with food, or we're going to let them not have any amenities? Because I'm thinking that they might have some wonderful amenities and all that. I think they should be sequestered, and maybe you'd have to deal with some vermin or something while they're in there.
Yeah. Well, they had to have their heads put with that thing with a rat in there, and they.
Can't deal.
I think that works.
If we're talking about locking the politicians up, they can't deal with vermin. They are the vermin, right? So what I'm suggesting is
that's pretty true.
You do provide them with water, but you provide that you give them the Flint water, right? Give them water from Flint. Give that to them. Give them food from areas of America where the food supply is not great. Feed them that, and just say, "Look, guys, you're going to have to live like the
school lunches."
Guys, did you see this? Wait a minute, I got to show you this. Look at this. Roll call 11. Mr. McCarthy 200. Mr. Jeffries, here you go, Mark. Yeah. Mr. Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries 212. He got more votes than Kevin McCarthy, and they're not even in the majority.
Exactly.
No, Chris. Hang on,
Look at
Chris.
this.
No, Chris. That's because all the Democrats are voting for Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, but they don't have
not all the
212,
votes-
do they? Do
Yes,
they have
but not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not all the Republicans are voting for McCarthy. That's where the issue lies, right?
That's what-
Now, doesn't this tell you
so-
something? Doesn't
Well,
it tell you something at this point?
it tells you a lot of things. One, that they're suggesting that perhaps people like Jim Jordan might have a go. I couldn't see it personally, but okay,
Yeah.
that might
Yeah.
work. But let me just say, I think it's quite telling because Donald Trump actually supported McCarthy as the speaker.
Mhm.
And so for anybody who thinks that whatever Donald Trump says goes in the Republican Party, that's clearly not the case. And I think the Republican Party is moving away from some of that. January 6th, the election was fraudulent. That rhetoric isn't working. It hasn't really played out in the election either. People like Carrie Lake didn't do as well as she thought she would. So that's not.
Well, that's because they cheated.
That's-
Who got the
that's
one
not-
vote?
That's not
Who got
working
one
as well
vote?
for
Look,
for them, and a lot of
Trump got
Donald
a
Trump's
vote?
candidates didn't do so
Trump.
well in this last midterm election. So I think the Republican Party, you're saying,
Can you hear me now?
in the
We
Yes.
hear you now, Dan.
I think we can see that in the really hard red areas, there's a little bit of a backlash against McCarthy, but you're also seeing some more moderate Democrats that are like, maybe we need to take the party a different direction. It's probably a good time for them to be doing that, so they're ready to be unified behind something before 2024.
Yeah, that makes
Dan,
a
you
lot
were
of
going to
sense.
say the question was whether I should be the Secretary of State.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think that's true. I don't want to be I don't want to be associated with federal government. Thank you very much. I can be an advisor though.
So if David Walker becomes president, you will be his lead advisor. Is that
No, not lead advisor, because I think that David deserves better than me. But I can be an advisor.
Well, speaking of advisors, and I was going to get to, I'm glad Sasha's here and everything. I was going to get to some of the things that are going on in that part of the world, because apparently in a brilliant move, and I know that he's got some allies that are on this particular side of religion and politics and all of that. But Mr. Putin has decided that he wants to have a ceasefire because he wants to honor the Orthodox Church. And I do know that he has an ally, I guess.
What a
within the Orthodox
bunch
Church.
of bull crap. He had last Easter to do everything he could to bring a ceasefire, to do whatever he needed to do. And what did he do? He kept attacking on Easter. Don't tell me this guy all of a sudden has a change of heart. What he wants to do is, as the Viet Cong did and the North Vietnamese did in Vietnam War, is they pull this bull crap about ceasefire so they can reconfigure their troops. They can restructure them, do whatever they need to do, pull them out, put them in, whatever is going to happen, put some more in Bakhmut, which is hilarious because this village has 9 buildings or something. I got it on the map here. But I mean, basically what happened is that they're doing it. Putin is a hypocrite. I mean, first of all, the guy, I think you're right. I think you're exactly right, Sasha. I think basically the guy is like a Napoleonic figure. Next to Erdogan, the guy's a midget. So you have a situation where he's trying really hard to make
Lollipop guild, right?
That's how you really feel, Chris.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy's talk about hypocrite. So
And,
there's
Sasha-
Bakhmut right here. I mean, they're fighting. They are fighting house to house, and these guys are taking a lot of beatings from this. Just to take this kind of small town. And why strategically they're doing this, I kind of get, because there's some major roads that go right through here that they're trying to take, but they're not going to be able to take the roads until they take the actual area. And now Russians are saying, "Oh, we've taken Bakhmut. Yeah, we don't have a problem with that. We've taken it." And I'm sitting back going, "Really? So why are there still sappers up on the top floor wiping your guys out?"
What's happening in Bakhmut is a little bit more interesting. It's a personal fight of Mr. Prigozhin and his Wagner.
Yeah, his Wagner group.
Who
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to show that the Russian troops are good for nothing, but they are specially trained group. They are going to show how we need to fight. So what's happening?
Assassins. Yeah.
That he's providing his meat of his trained soldiers, which are supposed to be pretty good.
Dobermans.
He's bringing them in droves. So he brings 300 to defend some kind of a territory. They're all being killed. He brings another 300 to the same place. So Ukrainians, they even don't have to change anything. They just have to keep shooting the same direction, the same ammunition, and they keep killing them and killing and killing. That's what's happened in the Bakhmut.
I mean, it's 11. It's 11 square miles. They can't take 11 square miles.
No,
they can't.
take that.
I mean, they're trying like hell, but they're not getting there.
They're not
So-
getting there.
I'd like to say something here though, because I think for other than for Sasha, I think for the rest of us, the Ukraine's very far away. Russia's very far away. It's
Oh
very
yeah.
easy for us
Who
to-
cares? Yeah,
to
really.
think about this in the terms of it's happening to somebody else.
Merry
But you
Christmas,
look
by
at
the
that-
way.
you
Sasha,
look at that
if
map.
you do Russian Orthodox.
Thank you.
You look at that map, and that's a city that's very similar. Just looking at it from the satellite, right?
Yeah.
That looks like a city that's very similar to a city that any of us could be living in our own countries, and it's surrounded by what appears to be rural farmland. We all know of places like that in our own land, and that's the thing, that there's just everyday people that are trying to go about living their lives that have been attacked here. We said yesterday on the show, and I think I didn't quite get a chance to respond to it, that Vladimir Putin is saying, well, I'm prepared to enter into some sort of peace negotiation or a negotiation to end the war on the condition that the Ukraine does this, this, and this.
Right.
No, you're missing the point, dude. Get your ass out of there, right? Get your ass out of there. And I would say to even people in some of the more right-wing media that would suggest that, well, Vladimir Putin, there was this issue with the eastern parts of Ukraine that really felt that they were Russian and that, the Ukrainians were treating them badly. Look, you may feel that way, okay, but what you don't support is another country invading the sovereignty of another country. All right, it's just not on, and so I don't think that there should be any compromises at all. I think that the Ukraine and the West, more especially the West, should say, look, you must give territorial integrity to the Ukraine, and if there are regions of the Ukraine, if it really is true that there's regions of the Ukraine that would rather be part of Russia, let there be some sort of democratic process that's overseen by the international community. But going in there and attacking the Ukrainians and then saying, well, look, I've decided, because I'm such a nice guy, that we're going to have a ceasefire. Now that we're sort of losing, let's have a ceasefire. No bullshit.
Well,
we're losing too many people.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're losing too many people. Let's have a ceasefire.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So
that's what
let's go to
It's
the
been
map
like-
just for a
it's been like
second,
the
because I think this
Democrats,
is important.
We seem to be losing. We seem to be losing.
Yeah.
Let's compromise.
Yeah. Oh, of
Um,
course.
And
We
now
can
all of a
think
sudden-
about it some more.
And now
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the Republicans are sitting there going, "Oh shit, we couldn't win back the Senate. We've barely got back the House. We can't elect a speaker. We're going to lose to the wokesters. What are we going to do?" Well, maybe
Yeah.
they should get their heads out of their asses and one, be a little bit more realistic about their plans, and
Yeah,
two,
agreed.
maybe they should actually have a plan. Rather
So
than
I
just
want-
poking holes in what the Democrats have as a plan, maybe actually talk about how you're going to do it better. And I think
So-
the Republicans
so I
have
wanted
done a
to-
very poor job of that so far.
Yeah, so I
Yep.
wanted to just compare. So this is, remember that circle I showed you, that big gigantic circle that was 11 square miles? This is the dot right here. That's the dot that basically is what the Wagner Group or the Wagner Group or whatever it is, that's what they have. This is Ukraine. This is Ukraine. This is the Wagner Group. Let me do one more time. Ukraine, Wagner Group. There it is. So congratulations, guys. You took Bakhmut. Congratulations. I am dadgummit.
Chris,
That's a great
Chris.
strategic deal. Yeah.
Chris, can't they go onto Google Maps, pinpoint that, and blow the hell out of the Wagner Group?
Well, the problem is that the Ukrainians are there. That they can pinpoint Bakhmut. Yeah, sure, and they can blow the hell out of it. But the problem is there's still Ukrainians there in buildings.
I thought
Yeah.
the Wagner Group would go into a weapons dump and stay there so that
So they could be sitting ducks, as the old expression goes, and everything. And
Yeah.
Shaquille, you're gonna love this one.
Let me just sort of reinforce Dan's point though, because there was a lot of criticism leveled at the United States for, like under Obama, for example, for the drone strikes that took out some civilians.
Mhm.
There was a lot of criticism, even under other presidents and other military leaders, about drones not quite working. But we haven't heard very much about drones in this conflict. I've found that since this conflict has happened, I found that quite odd. Why are the Ukrainians not being provided with them? Or if they are being provided with them and we're just not being told that, that's fair enough.
Well, they are.
And I also note that yesterday, it's been reported that both the United States and Germany have agreed to send military vehicles and
I mentioned that in the
infantry
tanks and
over there.
everything. Yeah.
So.
No, I mentioned that at the beginning and all in there, and they did say
Before
that.
I respond, Mark, Chris, why is there not drones? Why aren't we hearing about drones being used over there? Because surely
Drones are being used.
Yeah, drones are being
Well, that's the drones being used by the Russians or the drones being used
by
the Ukrainians. You got to remember that here's the difference in that whole situation. The Russians are using Iranian drones that are basically they just plug in a GPS and let it rip, right? The Ukrainians are using HIMARS and they're destroying stuff. I mean, that hit on that ammo dump was by a HIMARS. That was straight out of I'm just going to load this baby in and let her rip, and they did, and they destroyed that thing with a one-shot deal. So I mean, the Russians have drones and the Ukrainians have HIMARS. So as long as they have HIMARS, which is 70 kilometers, they can go ahead and hit whatever they want. But I'll tell you, they're using drones in specific areas. Like the Ukrainians used a drone, although they don't take credit for it. They used a drone. I think conjecture. I think they used a drone against the airfield, the Engels airfield. I mean, that thing had blackjack bombers and everything else. I think they hit a Tu-94, Tu-95. I think they hit a Tu-95. But I mean, this thing is just they're changing up their weapons use, which is really good. I think it's a good idea.
They're not even foreign produced drones. It's Ukraine.
No, they're not. They're not foreign produced. They're certainly not Iranian drones, which are basically wings with a freaking GPS on it and a high explosive HE charge on it, and that's pretty much what they have. I mean, what they're doing, what the Russians are doing, is high tech V2 rockets. Basically, they're taking, for all the denazification they're talking about, they're using Nazi techniques of terror and basically attrition to try to terrorize the Ukrainians. And I'll tell you what this is doing. It's pissing them off. The Ukrainians are even more pissed off than they were in the beginning. I mean, if Putin ever achieves what he achieves, which he's not going to achieve it, and that is taking Ukraine, he's got an entire population of how many million partisans. I mean, he's going to have to deal with people shooting at troops from tops of buildings from now till the day that they withdraw. It's going to be like Afghanistan.
Sasha, Russia is a monstrous-sized country that shares borders with many countries like Finland and Estonia and those sorts of countries. But what about some of the countries that are not talked about as much, less powerful countries like Georgia?
Georgia.
Is there likely to be, do you think, any Russian aggression against them and some of those smaller nations? People talk about Kazakhstan and some of the other, I don't know them all. My geography is not so good, Uzbekistan, things like that. Is there the potential there for further fallout?
Potential, yes, I would agree. But each country is different, one from another one. For example, let's see Georgia. Georgia is being ruled by Mr. Ivanishvili, who is a former Putin's oligarch and very friendly to Putin. Although Georgians, they hate Russians and they would love to have insurrections. But while Ivanishvili is at the power, it's highly unlikely. Now, for example, country like Kazakhstan, they already declared distance themselves from Russia, and although they're not they don't have direct uprising against Russians, but if Russia would do any unfriendly moves toward them, they're very close to do exactly that. And Kazakhstan is not a joke. It's a pretty large country, and it has a lot of Russian population, by the way. But Russians who live outside of Russia, they are enemies of Russia. They don't want to deal. They don't want to do anything with Russians at all. Now,
So
I
this
know
is-
in
this is
Europe, for
interesting.
example, many people who moved from Russia to the West, to the Western Europe, they are trying not to speak Russian in public places. They try to speak either local language, or if some of them can speak Ukrainian, that's even better, but not Russian. That's what's
So
happening.
this is an interesting point, because either yesterday or perhaps the day before, somebody said, it might have been you, I can't remember who it was, had said that there was a certain nation that was basically essentially giving refugee status to any Russians that wanted to flee Russia and come there. Do you think that there is perhaps a change in
was Serbia, I
sentiment
think.
amongst Russian people who just want to get out and say, look, I want nothing to do with what my country's doing. Let me into your country. I want nothing to do with Russia. Do you think there's a rise?
A lot of people already left Russia, and more people will leave Russia. Of course, it's not an easy thing to do. Many people just unable to leave Russia because of the material considerations, because they have older parents, and there are a lot of course, strings attached. But a lot of people, and I'm talking about younger people, able people who had actually very good jobs in IT sectors, or so, they're all moved away from Russia. And what they noticed, a lot of them are moving to, for example, countries like Armenia, which is it's a different country, of course, from Russia. It's supposedly independent country, but they now showed in the last few months there was GDP of Armenia jumped about 15% because of influx of Russians and having good jobs and so on. So they're benefiting from it. So speaking about immigration, so sometimes it could be very positive for the country.
Sasha, I've asked you this once before, and I just want to sort of touch on it again. Again, Russia is a monstrous-sized country, and I know from talking to people in China, I know from people talking in other very large countries, that often what is happening in the political capitals in the largest cities has very little effect and is largely ignored by people that live elsewhere in the country. What do you think the sentiment is of the people that live, in far more remote places, nowhere near St. Petersburg, nowhere near Moscow, some of those smaller cities and those smaller places around Russia? Is there any kind of knowledge about how they're feeling about this? Are they aware of what's going on, or is it sort of being covered up from them? What's your understanding?
It's very, very difficult to gauge really what's happened in most of the Russian territory, because remember that all the politics, economy, everything is centered in Moscow, to lesser degree in St. Petersburg, but mostly it's Moscow. So everything and all decision making and everything is coming from Moscow. So the rest of Russia, they're fighting for their existence more than anything else. And they have no say in politics of Russia or in election of its leaders, and absolutely not. So for all practical purposes, it might as well be ignored. And not only by Putin, which is always the case, but even when we are discussing situation in Russia and what's happening there, we might just as well ignore it, because it's non-event, it's no factor at all.
Now, does the political system in Russia, does it have a similar thing to, say, Canada and the United States, where you have individual states with their own state parliaments or state congresses that have their own rights that's separate to the rights of the Russian Federation, or is it all run under one big government?
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's all centered system, which starts right from the top in Kremlin, and then it goes all the way down, and everyone, whether it's let's say governor of some republic or state or whatever, they're all taking orders from the top. And if they're disobeying the orders, they're removed instantly, if not being killed. So they will be just ruthlessly removed. So this is all centralized, very highly centralized system. And therefore, everything what trickles down on a certain level, it might as well be ignored, because it's non-event. It has, the Russians have no say, and to tell you the truth, with all the propaganda going at them at 24 hours a day, I even don't think that they have any kind of say which would be different from the party line, from the whatever Putin and his crony decided to do.
So,
That's unfortunately
Sasha, I need some help here, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I looked up migration migration source, and unfortunately, it's in Russian. So I have it up in Excel, but it's in Russian. So I just need to find out what it has it all the way from 1990 all the way through to 2000 to 2021. And the problem is that the column headers are all in Russian. So I have no idea what it's, I have no idea what I'm looking at. I was going to go ahead and try to go through translate, but I'm just not, I'm not doing a good job. So can you tell me which one of these columns has to do with migration?
Okay, yeah, it's talking about results of the migration. Then they're talking about, okay, the first is the years and how many people arrived. Then it goes Russia, inside of regions, from other regions, and from foreign countries.
Okay, so that's in this area here.
Yeah, the last one is foreign countries. Then people who left Russia.
Oh, this is okay. This is migration. Okay.
Again, Russia, regions, other regions, and to foreign countries.
Okay, so basically, migration. We're talking, 3 million people there, in 2021. So I mean, there's 3 million people that are leaving there. I mean, there was only maybe less than 2 million, and that was in 2004. And then when did Putin take charge? What year was that? It was
2000.
So 2000. So 2004, they were kind of they were okay with it. Then all of a sudden, they got this real over 4 million people. So basically, you still have almost 4 million people that are leaving. That's just from inside Russia. Then you have the rest of that area. So I mean, this is Russian reporting.
As much as you can. I don't know how much trust is there in this reporting.
Yeah, exactly. They're probably underreporting it, which is, I mean, the same thing that China's doing with COVID and whatever else. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting. And also, not to get off Ukraine for a second, but I finally found the data on homelessness, Mark. I have that on my share screen. So basically it says, and this is the 2020, this is from HUD. This is from the Housing Urban Development. Right. On a single night in 2020, roughly 580,000 people were experiencing homelessness in the United States. 6 in 10 were staying in sheltered locations. So, I mean, 580,000 out of 320 million, or 330 million. So, I mean, that isn't many, but still, that's 580,000. And then, I mean, the whole report is here, and I have the site here if anybody wants it. But I don't mean to get off the Ukraine thing because I think that's pretty important. But I wanted to address that one that you had way long time ago, Mark. So basically, almost 600,000. And in your case, Sasha, basically what's happening is that you have maybe 7 million people that are leaving per year. Unless I'm wrong, I don't think Russia has that many people. I think Russia has what 100 million or something like that, 150 million.
140.
So 140 million. I mean, they're losing 10 million a year, or 4 to 5 million a year. They're going to be an empty country in about 10 years.
War's over. There's nobody.
Yeah, there's nobody left. I mean, it's going to be Putin and the Castle Guard. That's going to be it.
You tend to think that.
By the way,
able to leave,
the Wagner Group is beginning to enlist people directly from prisons. They're traded their jail time to join the war in Ukraine.
By the way, there is no legal explanation how it could be done legally, because if you're inmate and you are under different jurisdiction, at least under Russian law, that than the mobilized people. So therefore, there is a contradiction, even the mechanism itself, how it can legally implement.
Well, in the United States or in World War II, we did a lot of this as well for certain crimes. Would give them the choice. Judges would give them the choice of going to prison or joining the Marines or something. Yeah. The former governor of South Dakota, Janklow, was one of those guys. He allegedly raped a woman on the Indian reservation, a young girl, and was convicted, but then chose to go to the Marines, obviously, and then later became the governor.
You just mentioned that there was some kind of a judge's decision to allow that to happen. In Russia, there is not even a judge's decision was required. The ruler of Wagner Group, Mr. Prigozhin, he himself was going to jails and talked to inmates, encouraging them to join. Some of them did, some of them didn't. So on what authority he could visit the reservation for inmates and speak to them directly and recruit them right there?
Putin probably gave him the authority.
Yeah, I'm sure Putin gave him the authority and everything. No doubt about that. Hey,
since
Nick,
he's a
you'll be
dictator.
glad to know this. Speaking of migration, and I did allude to this earlier, but I know that sometimes you have mentioned a country that you are not the biggest fan of, and all in that space, that being Venezuela. And apparently President Joe Biden on Thursday said the U.S. would immediately begin turning away Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans who crossed the border from Mexico illegally, the boldest move yet to confront the arrival of migrants that has spiraled since he took office.
Mark, there's more to it than that. Right.
He knows that of all the immigrant groups that come over, right, unless we're expected to believe
right. You're right. There's more to it.
But the people that come from Venezuela and the people that come from Cuba,
we can't hear you, Shaquille.
They absolutely reject. You can't hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I'm good.
That they absolutely reject the ideas of socialism and big government, that sort of thing. And just by pure coincidence, a left-leaning government has decided that they're the people they're going to turn away. And rather than just saying, look, we're doing it for political reasons, they're going to say, oh, look, we're taking immigration seriously. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're not
but basically what's happening is that Biden has you have an app, CBP-1. What is it? The Border Patrol, right? CBP-1, which is an app that the Venezuelans and the Haitians and the Cubans can use to put their application for asylum in before they cross into the United States. If they do not have that on their person, or they don't have it with them, or whatever else, then they are turned away back to Mexico. So I think that's interesting.
Chris,
and Soros is buying them the phone,
if
so
you're
they have the app.
that's a good idea, okay. Look, I can understand if a Republican said that. Fair enough. But a Democrat saying that, aren't these the same people that have been rabbiting on about how black people in the United States don't have access to the internet? If somebody living in Florida or Georgia or North Carolina or Mississippi can't work out how to get ID and can't work out how to get the internet, how is somebody from Venezuela supposed to get access to this app?
Well, Dan answered it. Go ahead, Dan.
Aren't there libraries?
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, Nick, the libraries aren't sufficient for you to have free and fair elections. The black vote's been suppressed in the United States, like Georgia. So why is it not any different?
Soros doesn't care about the blacks in America. He's just trying to get more illegals across the border to change the political dynamic and ruin America.
Well, he said we let in 30,000 a month.
Well, Shaquille, you're going to love this one because I'm actually going to bring up another news story as well, because we've been talking about the House and we've been talking about the Congress and everything. And yes, I am one of the people that touts when great things happen in society, but I also one that, believe it or not, Shaquille, will call out my own folks and everything. And there is a group of folks in the Congress that are supposed to be nonpartisan. That's what they claim and everything. They claim that they're supposed to be nonpartisan, and that is the Congressional Black Caucus. And they now have the largest group of ever 58 members in the CBC and a record number of black members elected.
Why won't they let the
Republicans allow a member to come in? And it's actually a member that I don't see why they won't allow them, because they're supposed to be nonpartisan, but they are upset at the Republican representative elect Byron Donalds.
Surprise!
And they have said that he wants to join the group, and they're like saying that he's being a tool of the Republican right and all of that. And
Well, they're being a tool.
they don't want in there,
here we go.
Good
even
for
though
you,
it's
Mark.
bipartisan
I'm glad you brought that up.
Understood.
Good for you.
We have
Thank
we
you.
have the
Thank you.
Congressional Black Caucus, a
Hypocrisy.
nonpartisan group that's upset that a black person is representing the views of the Republicans. You can't make it up.
That's called
You really
called
couldn't
politics.
make it up.
Oh, that's being a dumbass, right?
Politics in America, baby. Hey, are we ever going to have a leader in Washington for the Congress, or are these guys a bunch
I
of
don't know what you honestly. I don't
Supposedly.
know what you guys
There's no
if
leader.
you show my
I
share
seriously-
screen, Nick, show
Okay,
my
we're
share
gonna see
screen,
some
and
weird
you'll
We'll put up
see.
the share screen. By the way,
I'm telling you, it's
by the
gonna
way,
be
Donald
Trump.
was
He's
one
just
of the
he got
candidates,
one
and
vote,
not
then
just
he
Donald
gets two.
Trump, but Donald
Yeah.
Byron
Well,
was also a
No,
candidate
it's going to
as
still be
well.
McCarthy.
Put up there.
It's still going to be McCarthy.
I know it's
honestly,
gonna be
I
McCarthy.
cannot understand why any American is actually complaining about the fact that there's no speaker. No speaker means absolutely nothing can be done.
No
You
laws.
guys should be taking a breath of fresh
No
air
new
and just
laws.
be like,
Already a budget.
Good
keep
thing.
it like this.
That's right. Budget's
Let
done.
the government be shut down. Who cares? We'll get on with our lives. Everybody but Nick. Nick's a bit insane. But other than Nick, I think you guys should be rejoicing. Do you want me to send some champagne over to you guys? I couldn't imagine anything better.
Shakil, may I ask you
I love
something?
it if my country's shut down.
Shakil, do you
Australia,
believe that actually McCarthy holds all United States of America a hostage? He is unelectable. He's not going to be elected, period. So why doesn't he take out his name
I
and
think
let
you're wrong.
someone else to lead?
I think
No,
he's
no,
going
but
to
Sasha,
win.
Sasha, that's not really the point, though. I don't think that he's
Why is
holding
it
up
not?
the country. No,
Why is
I
it
don't
not
think
the
that-
point?
I'm answering
He
you.
is
I'm
not
answering you.
electable
I'm
11
answering you.
times.
I'm answering
11
you.
You
times.
know we have Canadians.
I'm answering you.
running our
I'm
country.
answering you if you let me.
Panels,
I don't think that
American
he
panels.
personally.
Notice it's Canadians and Australian interfering once again.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to tell us our business, right?
Well, because
You have
we
Sasha.
actually.
I think
Yeah,
Sasha's an agent of Putin.
Hold on a second.
Because we actually have a political system that works.
No, I'm an
You're
agent
doing
of
it here,
Zelensky.
right here.
That's right.
I wouldn't be admitting that.
You don't like this idea, so hold on a second. But that whole debate between Byron and
Mark,
Donald and
don't tell us to hold on. I was waiting. Sasha,
Yeah,
I don't think that it's
Hold
Kevin
on.
McCarthy
Let's hear from Dan.
that's
He's an
holding
American.
up the
I know.
country and holding the country to ransom. It's Republicans who are unable to produce a candidate for speaker.
But it's obviously clear why. The reason is McCarthy. There are some people in the Republican Party who says that he will win even if they will vote 157 times, 955
I agree with you.
times. It doesn't change anything. He is not going to be elected. Period.
Sasha, I don't know. Again, I agree with you. I don't know why you're being emphatic about this. I agree with you. But the question for the Republicans is, who would you prefer to be there?
Anyway,
Does Scalise hold enough of the majority, or the Republicans to win it? Does Jim Jordan do it? I think they're in a difficult position.
I have a
they
solution.
are in difficult position, and their
My
position
fellow
gets
Americans,
more and
the
more
solution for
difficult.
immigration.
Vote.
We send them to
How many
Australia.
I agree with you.
going to be 3 or 4? What do you think today?
Send our
Sasha,
immigrants
I absolutely agree with you. And
to
as I have
Australia.
pointed out, I am not a Republican. I am not a partisan.
We
Right?
know you're
There's a
an
difference
Australian.
between being a partisan and somebody who says, I don't hate Donald Trump. I don't hate Donald Trump. I just look at his policies.
You know,
So
the
other than
biggest
that, I'm
surprise-
not a Republican. As
And,
everybody
Shakil, but the biggest surprise of yesterday's vote was that last one where Trump got one. What? I thought that he was
Donald Trump got a
But he
vote,
got
and
one.
actually Byron
He
Donald
got
was even
one.
nominated
Trying
by
to
the
explain to
House
the
Freedom
Americans,
Caucus.
these foreigners watch
Sasha,
this
I'm
like a
surprised actually that there weren't more Democrats that crossed the floor to vote for Donald Trump being the speaker. Because I'll tell you, if I was a Democrat, that's absolutely who I'd elect to be the speaker. Can you imagine how much you could make this guy look bad? The Democrats effectively have the Senate, so you've got him there as a speaker. Republicans in absolute disarray. If I was a Democrat, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd put him
Shakil,
there as speaker.
but compare. Russians are going to jails to get people to fight. So now Republicans are getting Trump. He's not in jail yet, but obviously he's going to be there soon. So they're bringing Trump, and he's got one vote. Brilliant. It's a brilliant move, Shakil. You're not for Trump, I know that. So enjoy.
Yeah, of course I'd enjoy it. Again, look, Sasha, although you're a bit close to the United States because you live just above them, I'm nowhere near the United States. I spend time there. I travel there. This is
a lot
amusement.
in the United
I get the
States.
popcorn out. I mean, I've had to endure it in my own countries. The UK's been through this Brexit thing, and now America's just absolutely lost the plot. Brilliant.
Hey, Nick, I just came up with a brilliant idea. Well, actually, one of the things we're going to do next week, and I'm going to mention that just so folks know and everything that are watching. But Cori Bush and Donald Byron were going back and forth, and Donald Byron said that to Cori Bush in apparently Twitter, Cori Bush, if you see a black man rise, let the man rise. Even if you disagree with them, I'd be happy to sit down and debate our policies one-on-one whenever you like. As a black man to a black woman, I never do that to you. It's the same you did it to me. And that's what he tweeted on Thursday. So, Nick, I think I'm going to reach out to both Donald Byron and Cori Bush, and maybe we'll have the debate right here on Pod TV. What do you think?
Wow.
But you know what, Mark? Again, this is such bullshit coming from the left of politics, right? Because whenever a black person who isn't a far left extreme, Marxist, which most people, by the way, are not, they don't realize that what they're saying is in support of Marxism. But whenever you say, hey, I'm for fiscal responsibility, blah, 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 they're like, oh, you're a right winger. You must. My cousins call me white boy, right? Because they think that I'm too far white. I'm too far conservative. I've got no idea, which is funny. It's amusing because I've got sunburned and none of them ever have been and all that sort of stuff. That's cool. I like that. That's funny. We have a good laugh about it, right? I don't sit there and get offended and get upset. Again, we live in Australia and New Zealand, so we're not as sensitive as you guys. So absolutely fine. No problems. But, you come across to the United States and you see black people who espouse ideas that the political left doesn't like, and the political left comes up and says, well, they're traitors to their race. They're the black face of white supremacy, as was said to a gubernatorial candidate in California. This is the sort of rhetoric that they hear all the time. And then when it's the other side, when the other side try to achieve something, it's like, well,
Oreo.
You should celebrate us. Even if you don't agree, because somebody of color is achieving something. It's bullshit.
Hey, but Dan, guess what? There's a term for just about every race has a term like that for that existence of somebody that is perceived to be maybe too supportive or too much like one group versus another. You just brought up the term Oreo. I've heard taco in the Hispanic community. I've heard.
Well, let me tell you, I really like Oreos, especially with milk. It's the chocolate cookie on the outside and the white creamy center. Right. But I am diabetic, so I have to be careful how many I eat.
Are you trying to say that a cookie color has caused you blood sugar problems?
Well, no, I think
upset Markley's friends.
I think all these. I think all these ridiculous. Oh, you're going to say timeout?
Yeah, it's timeout because it's about time.
I have another show waiting.
Oh, okay.
No, we got to wrap up. And the only thing I was going to mention really quickly as we wrap up, because the other show that's getting ready to go on is that. On Monday, we will have a woman that will be coming on the show. I think it's a woman. Coming on the show that is a supporter of Donald Trump. They say that why they think Donald Trump is like Abraham Lincoln, and they will also tell us why Donald Trump could be re-elected.
Well, he's not as tall.
Election. So they will be coming to us on Monday. I've heard that confirmation from them. They will be joining us on Monday. So we're going to have some conversation around why Donald Trump should be elected and how Donald Trump
like
and Abraham Lincoln are something.
I just want to let you know, Shaquille, Shaquille, that in the past hour, your Google trends have gone above Kevin McCarthy. You've had 100. There you are. In the last hour, look at this. The blue is Kevin McCarthy. The red, of course, is Shaquille Latimer. Look at this.
He's got his family watching, right?
Yeah, look at this. I mean,
and all his
investors. I must have been Googling from my other computer.
Good for you, man. I just want to let you know. So I'll finish on that one.
Hey, how am I doing, Chris? Am I trending?
I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that on Monday. I'll put
Yeah,
you.
I kind of doubt I am, but there's a
Well, who knows?
possibility.
Who knows?
Who knows? Well, we're going to wrap this show. This has been a fun week as always. I'm glad that Shaquille is back in the mix. He's had some stuff going on in Australia, so always giving us some great conversation and all of that. But we're going to bounce on out of here, and we'll be back on Monday when we've got all kinds of amazing guests. We've got somebody's going to tell us about Dry January. We're going to have somebody talking about Donald Trump on Monday, and I think sometime in the middle of the week we'll have an animal rights activist, which I know Shaquille Latimer will love.
We'll have fun with that.
That's probably why people have been Googling me.
Is that a good